Welcome back. You're watching State of the Nation. We're reaching you live from our station here in Lagos. Victor Oche is a former lawmaker. He's still with us in our Abuja studios to look at the so many angles to the fight against corruption. Want to thank you for holding on in there. We did hear an announcement just shortly yesterday, sometimes in the evening of yesterday, when INEC earlier announced a timetable for the 2019 elections and later said it was more of a principle than a timetable for elections, which it puts at February 16th for the presidential and National Assembly elections, while the governorship elections will take place 2 weeks later. What's your take on the INEC selection principle, considering other variables or call it factors that must be tabled before a publicity like that is made?
Well, Gimba, for me, I don't see anything wrong with what INEC did. For me, I think it's a step in the right direction. Maybe for the first time we are having to know 2 years plus before election time what the timetable will be like. And it puts everybody, we start to plan early. What we want to avoid, and I think INEC also wants to avoid, is a situation where we'll have the fire brigade approach, which we've always had in previous elections, particularly the general elections. If you will recall, the 2015 elections, it was slated for February 14th and February 28th. But for some exigencies that made them shift the elections by another 6 weeks, which pushed it into March, you would have had the elections early. And I don't see anything wrong with, if INEC begins to plan now, 2 years plus before the time, or 2 years before the time, it only tells me that INEC is rising up to, or living up to its expectations, and planning ahead so that nobody's taken unawares. You know that with time, this time is going to be within a specified time. All plans within that time will have been put in place, and everything is tailored towards ensuring that that date is kept sacrosanct. Whatever other variables that may come, which particularly I believe the biggest variable will be that of the funding, I think it's time enough to start planning for it. Even if we have to take 2 budget sessions to plan for it, you have this year and this year, next year, and the year thereafter to plan for it. So I think INEC is in the right direction, and I'll give them kudos for ensuring that that has been put out there for everybody to know. So we are not beating and everybody is wondering when will the elections be, and we start making guesses, which we don't need to do, and putting INEC under unnecessary pressure to give us the dates.
Now, you know very well that some parties, some big political parties, are very much in opposition of the announcement of the set-to-be timetable, or call it a principle, if you will, according to INEC. Why do you suppose that this opposition is coming at a time like this, when you agree that INEC is taking a step in the right direction?
Political parties, no matter what the situation is, will always either kicking in favor or kicking against. Parties that you may see kick against now are parties who, at the present time, are probably in disarray. That is not the business of INEC. INEC's business is to register them as political associations when they come up to them and meet the criteria for registration. Once that is done, INEC is an umpire. INEC's business is to set the timetable and tell you, at this time, we expect elections. So if you want to continue with your internal issues, you can continue with them. It's not our business. We'll set the pace right. Whenever you finish your issues, get ready and start planning yourself towards the election time. I don't see any reason for them to kick against it or say whatever it is. I don't know what variables they are considering for making the kind of agitations coming from them. I believe they have done what is right, and I verily support what they've done.
Let me take you back to some of the measures that were taken when the president was away to the UK. Those measures were taken by the acting president at the time, Professor Yemi Osinbajo. He's asked that Nigeria comes up with a model to fight corruption. What's your take on that? Can Nigeria come up with an absolute model that works for Nigeria in the fight against corruption?
Yes, Gimba, I sincerely believe that, yes, in the fight, the anti-corruption fight, we must have a homegrown model. Now, I'll give you an example. Countries like Singapore and South Korea, Even recently, Russia, one of those very high corruption perception index, that's quite very bad. They're all putting measures to ensure that they clean up their system. Now, we can also do the same thing. And we must do things differently, the way that suits our own system. We need to define what the anti-corruption fight is all about. Is it to make a staccato of noise and that, oh, we're dealing with people who are politicians, particularly with respect to politicians or with the private sector, or what exactly are we looking at? Are we looking at whatever monies that we recover to ensure that, oh, we are making progress towards recovery or making progress towards just the show off to the international community that we are really doing something? I believe we should do what we need to all sit down. First, to fight corruption, what the Singaporeans did. Singapore was just like any other country, but it took leaders like Lee Kuan Yew, who came back from the UK after studies, about in the early 60s, and went into ensuring that the proper things were done. And now the leaders had to live above board. And living above board, there's a whole lot that was put into place. The integrity check must be near perfect, if not perfect. Now, in doing that, by the time you have leaders do that, there are other things which you also have to make the other agencies or institutions of government, they have to start working. I do not know how you want to fight corruption when you do not remunerate people very well. How do you expect them to survive and live in a system where they are not paid well? Their paychecks cannot pay their children's school fees, can't even take them to buy fuel, to work and back. What then do you expect them? How do you expect them to make a living out of the same work they are doing? Definitely, these are things we have to sit down and look at as a people. Now, we also look at, if I give you a country like Indonesia, we have almost the same corruption perception index. We are almost at par. But look at Indonesia today and look at Nigeria. The difference is, Indonesia's issue, whatever you steal, they invest it in Indonesia. But here what we do is we take it offshore. And that is what one of the things Russia did in 2012, between 2008 and 2012. They call it the offshoreization policy. Whatever monies you stole from Russia, Russia made you to bring that money back and invest it in Russia, and Russia will not see it as a crime. But if within a certain prescribed time you do not bring back the money to Russia to invest in Russia, then Russia will come to ask for her money, and that means it becomes a criminal offense. Now, Nigeria will have to also sit down to look at all the indices, and we have to sincerely battle these indices and ensure we put a homegrown system that works for us and works for everybody. And
I want to thank you so much indeed, Victor Oche. Is a former lawmaker. Unfortunately, that's the much we can take from you on the show. I want to thank you so much indeed for sharing your thoughts with us on State of the Nation, and also to you for being part of the show. I want to thank you so much indeed. Join me next time for another fresh package. I am Gimba Umar, and this is State of the Nation.